One of the wonderful things about working for an auction house is the sheer diversity of the vehicles you get entrusted with and asked to sell. So you can probably see around us, we have a little bit of everything. We've got in this particular auction an even broader range than usual. So we've got an 1899 PHEBUS, the only believed example surviving, all the way through to a 2020 Mini John Cooper Works Grand Prix edition, one of 575 built for the UK market. So there really is something for everyone, all price points, all prospects. You can probably see our valeting team Lellas are in attendance here today. So every effort's being made to present these cars to best advantage. We've got marquees up, the weather's holding out for the moment, but really this is the view day. This is the day to come down, have a listen to the engines running, go through the paperwork, do everything in a much more relaxed manner than tomorrow when it's a little bit more high pressure for the sale day. The crowds are bigger, the intensity's stronger. So a lot of people like coming down for the view day. Glorious surroundings here in the Pavilion Gardens. If you ever get the opportunity, please come and join us. Here we have a Swallow Doretti. Now these cars are interesting not only for the way they look, which is gorgeous, but also for the backstory. Swallow, the manufacturer, was part of Tube Industries, who were an automotive parts supplier. And they decided, because of their American contacts, to try and build a sports car to break the American market. So underneath this sleek skin are actually Triumph TR2 mechanicals. But Swallow was actually Swallow Coach Building, which had formerly been part of William Lyons' SS empire. When he became Jaguar, when he switched the company name, he sold off Swallow Coach Building. And when it was bought back by Tube Industries, they decided to use the name to launch this new sports car. Well, William Lyons, among quite a few others, was unhappy at the prospect of a parts supplier becoming a rival manufacturer, and not so subtly hinted that if Swallow didn't desist with the Doretti, that he would go elsewhere for his parts supply of door handles, bumpers, windscreen frames, and all that sort of thing. So these are very short-lived. It was only 54 to 55, they only made less than 300. They're a gorgeous thing, but a what if, and also a reminder of the power that a manufacturer has over a parts supplier. Now, for many of you, this will be a case of a thorn between two roses. These two 911s are subtly different generations. They look pretty much identical. They're both impact bumper cars, but this left-hand drive 911S was an American car. It is the earlier 70s iteration, so less powerful. This is the Carrera 3.2. This is from the first year of production, 1983. And these are, for many, the ultimate air-cooled 911. I say that because although the 993 was the last air-cooled 911, these have the torsion bar suspension. They are much truer to the original car, much truer to the 901 that became the 911. They are still quick by today's standards. You've got 231 brake horsepower, you've got a 5-speed gearbox, you've got Golf GTI baiting performance, but you've also got something that is really nimble and fun and alive to drive. And that's why these continue to be such popular cars. This is a low mileage example, but there are plenty out there with more than 300,000 kilometers or 200,000 miles on the clock. And if you look after these properly, they just run and run and run. But in terms of pure back to basics by today's standards, thrills, these are great things, which is why, as I say, there's so much demand for them. This is one of the rarest cars in the hall. This is a Lancia Fulvia Sport Zagato. Now, most people would think that a Lancia Fulvia, Lancia's gorgeous two-door little coupe, was sporty enough, but not the manufacturer. They approached Zagato, the coach builder, to produce this iteration. These are lighter and generally carry higher tuned engines. And this is one of the second generation, the 1.6 litre cars. It's rarer still because it's in right-hand drive. So we believe this is one of 40 odd made. And goodness knows how few there were produced in this colour. It's a sort of salmon pink, sort of orange, but anyway, the first owner of this car was an Italian living in England, and he kept it for the majority of its life. And it is just a pretty, pretty car. Now, Zagato had a wonderful reputation. They produced some of the most glorious pre-war Alfa Romeo sports cars, and sports cars that not only looked fantastic, but performed extremely well. So if you had a Zagato-bodied Alfa Romeo 6C or 8C, you had one of the best sports cars that money could buy in the 1930s. And here we are, this proud carrozzeria still going strong in the 60s and 70s. And this is one of the last designs. And as I say, the Fulvia in itself, great fun to drive. And this just turns everything up a little bit. So they are peppier, they are just great, lovely looking cars. They were unusual. The first series had an electric release. So this rear hatch would pop slightly up to aid cabin ventilation. It's a lovely airy design, but you've got a lot of glass. So you can see that it would be something that gets quite hot, especially with this incredible interior with its sort of carpety feel to it. Now, I'm a little bit too big for most Italian cars, but you can't deny the style. I mean, this is just a glorious place to be. You've got this wood-faced dashboard, you've got all the instruments you need to be looking at right in front of your face, wood rim steering wheel, this lovely acting gear shift. I've just about got my head in here, but these are glorious places to be. And the view through this letterbox windscreen, you can just imagine the country roads opening up in front of you. You can hear the buzz of the exhaust. These are beautiful to look at, great to drive, really rare, and in some ways should be worth rather more than they are. But as you can probably tell, I like Lancia Fulvias. Some 60 years on, it really is difficult to comprehend what a milestone the W100 Mercedes-Benz was. The Stuttgart company called it, quite humbly, the Super Mercedes. And you can kind of see where they were getting from. I mean, this car tips in at a little under 3 tons. Yet despite that, it's capable of about 130 miles an hour. Engineering chief Rudy Uhlenhaut really went that extra mile to ensure that this was about the fastest, best handling big car imaginable. This redefined standards in the luxury car sector. And frankly, it blew what Rolls-Royce were trying to do at the same time completely out the water. This was a supreme car. When Mercedes launched it, they invited a hand-picked group of journalists to debut it in Belgium. And they let them rip with the car. They could put it through any test they wanted, and it flew through. It's got an incredibly complicated hydraulic system that controls the actuation of the seats, the windows, the door locks. Most of them came with factory fit air conditioning. You could get them on a long wheelbase setting. You could get them with a launderette folding down rear roof. But the one thing that stuck was, yes, there were an awful lot of celebrities who owned these in period, an awful lot of film stars, also a lot of pop musicians. But because they were such a status symbol of absolute power and technological achievement, they were also kind of bought by an awful lot of dictators. So if you were a despot and you wanted to really lord it over your population as you reduced them to peasantry, this was your wheels of choice. And also you can appreciate that if you were being pelted with rocks and stones and rotten fruit, this is a very, very nice interior from which to speed past. And the fact that some of these would carry armour plating and that you could do 120, 130 miles an hour must have been a reassurance. But in all seriousness, they were supremely well built. I mean, they are just so nicely built and finished. And most of them could almost have written a book about their own lives. So this particular example, for example, well, was first owned by Camilla Parker Bowles' uncle. So it's quite possible the future Queen was in this car. It spent time in Monaco. It was with an owner in Scotland for 20 plus years who actually used to drive it back to the factory for servicing. It then spent time in Australia. So it has had a proper globe-trotting existence. And still you get that typical Mercedes thunk. I mean, these are just wonderful cars. Decades before people made a fuss about them, they had self-opening and self-closing boots. I mean, really just a fantastic thing. And it took other manufacturers, it's not an exaggeration, but some of the features on this car, it took other manufacturers an entire generation to catch up with. Here we have a Mulliner Park Ward 2-door. Now, these are based on the Silver Shadow platform, and I think in today's market, they are fabulous value. I mean, just look at it. When this car was new, it would have been considerably more expensive than an Aston Martin DB6 Mark II. Now, a Mark II DB6 is £250,000. you can buy this for 30. In fact, people spend more money on alloy wheels and body kits for a Rolls-Royce Cullinan than you would have to pay to own this. And it is a fabulous thing. They're rare, they're beautifully trimmed, I think they're very, very stylish, and they are a genuinely cosseting thing to drive. They're really relaxing. When you get behind the wheel of something like this, you just watch the world go by. There's no urge to go fast. I mean, they've got plenty of performance, but that's not how you drive one of these. You drive one of these by just wafting. And they are such an elegant thing, so beautifully trimmed and so nicely finished. And the Mulliner Pot Ward two-door, as you can see, is essentially the same design as the Corniche over there. And they just were a byword for luxury for decades. And you can see why. Here in H&H, we're lucky enough to be asked to sell an enormous range of machinery. So we don't specialise in a particular manufacturer, we don't specialise in a particular decade, but we've sold everything from 1890s London to Brighton runners like this, through to 1990s Formula One cars. Now this is the only example of its kind known to have survived. It's a PHEBUS. It dates from a time when manufacturers were sprouting up left, right and centre. Anybody could get hold of a proprietary engine like the DAMIAN unit in this and build a frame and a chassis around it. This is unusual in that it most likely began life as a tricycle and it's been converted to what's known as a forecar. And by forecar, they literally mean there is a frontage to the car. These are sometimes cruelly or unkindly known as mother-in-law seats. But this is where your brave passenger would ride whilst you were driving through. This particular PHEBUS has done the London to Brighton several occasions, and as an 1899 car, does enjoy an early start time. So a wonderful glimpse back to the dawn of motoring. Here we have an XK120 Drophead. I love the idea behind the whole XK series of cars, the 120, the 140, the 150. And that's that image that I have of Sir William Lyons, the founder of Jaguar, with Bill Haynes and Harry Mundy during the World War II, the Coventry Blitz, all planning a new engine, an engine to take what would become Jaguar forward into the 40s and 50s. And the 3.4 litre double overhead cam straight six that they devised whilst with the little tin hats on is an iconic engine. I mean, it scored 5 Le Mans victories. It is a proper power plant. This particular car, it's a little bit, wolf in sheep's clothing is not quite right because this would be a seriously well-dressed sheep. But this particular car has got a 5-speed gearbox in it. It's got disc brakes. It's got uprated steering, suspension and brakes. The chap who owns this car is a true enthusiast and a real driver. He's done a lot of historic rallying. So it has been properly sorted and upgraded. He's told me he's done the Tour Auto in this car. He sat on the Autobahn at 90 miles an hour blasting past things. So if you want something that looks old, drives that little bit more modern, and is just drop dead gorgeous, this is it. But as I say, for me, the heart of this car is the XK engine that carried on in production all the way from the 40s through to the 1980s. One of the longest lived engines and a beautiful sculptural thing to look at within its first iteration, the polished cam covers, but a really lovely thing. Now this is an interesting car. It's a Derby Bentley and it's a coach-built car, but it's been rebodied by Rod Jolly. Now Rod Jolly's now sadly retired, but you can see he was a craftsman. And the beauty of this body, really the details, you just have to take time to drink them in. Everywhere you look, there's a wonderful piece of sculpted metal, and it's all been pulled together as one cohesive design. Individual elements might look OTT, but it blends together beautifully, and it is a stunning creation. The owner likens the lines to those of Figoni and Falaschi, one of the most celebrated French coach builders, and it's not hard to see why. I mean, this is a very glamorous, very good looking, almost roadsterish car. The lines go all the way through and you can see the attention to detail is just fabulous. You've got these incredible bladed wings, and then the rear bumper, the way it mirrors that kink at the back of the wing, it's just been beautifully put together. So it's not period coach work, but I can't think of a period coach builder who would not have been damn proud to turn out this car. And as I say, it is a true testament to Rod Jolly's skills. You join us during a busy viewing day, But the main action, the main sale kicks off tomorrow. That's Wednesday the 27th. Doors open at 9 o'clock and the first car will go under the hammer at 1 o'clock. You can bid live in person, via the telephone or via the H&H website. And if you have any questions at any stage, please don't hesitate to contact us either via info@h&h.co.uk or via the telephone 01925 210 035. We very much hope you can join us tomorrow. Thank you.